Ling Ling went into her shop to steal something, but she pretended not to see it. Instead, she continued to warmly receive the beautiful customer in front of her. When the beautiful customer successfully purchased her product, she would also generously give the other party an extra gift. The reason why she was so generous was because the shop was about to close. She wanted to sell the product as soon as possible before the shop was closed. However, she didn't know that the beautiful customer she was receiving today was actually a superstar who was crazy about the world. She thought that the turn of fate would come a little later, but God's fingers were in a hurry to move the thread of fate. The two met again at the corner of the street. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Here, let me spit. Get your hands off me." Nick was obviously the beautiful girl who had a crush on her. While he was in a hurry to express his apology, he also invited her to his house to clean the house. At this time, Ella also recognized him. He was the kind bookstore owner. So he also let go of his guard and followed Nick to his house. And when Ella put on her clean clothes and slowly walked down the stairs, Nick seemed to be struck by the light of the spring rain. He began to become speechless. "Would you like a cup of tea before you go?" "No." "Coffee?" "Probably not. Something else cold." He tried hard to find the topic, but the circle of life of the two was extremely different. Ella's one piece of clothing was worth his few years of salary. But Nick's sincere attitude and real communication were what Ella longed for but could not get. "Thank you." "Yeah, my pleasure." Seeing that Ella was about to leave, Nick could no longer contain his excitement. "It was nice to meet you." "It's Ellen." "You're nice." After sending her away, Nick felt a little disappointed. He regretted that he didn't ask for her contact information just now. But just as he turned around and left, the doorbell suddenly rang. It was Ella who had just left. It turned out that her book was here. Nick quickly returned the book. And this time, Ella did not leave in a hurry, but looked at Nick for a few seconds. When the two slowly separated their lips, Nick was still immersed in that beauty. But then Ella's words made him sink. Probably best not to tell anyone about this. Ella did not explain much, just slowly turned around and left, leaving Nick standing there in confusion. But he would never expect that this unexpected meeting would completely change his life. Until the evening, Nick saw Ella's figure on TV and a poster of Ella hanging on the street. He realized that he had met a big star, but he couldn't be happy about it. After all, he and Ella are two different worlds. And the gentle touch between the lips could only turn into a secret at the bottom of his heart. However, the pen of fate is always full of blood. A call disturbed Nick's peaceful life. The call was Ella's voice. She invited Nick to meet her at the hotel where she worked that afternoon. He couldn't believe that a big star would take the initiative to ask her out. So after this afternoon, Nick held flowers in his hand and went to the hotel as scheduled. But what made Nick feel confused was that there was always a mysterious person behind him, even following him all the way to Ella's room. And when Nick came in and saw the house full of reporters, he woke up from his dream. It turned out that this was not a secret date, but an interview with a reporter of Ella's new movie. Under the spotlight, Nick was also thought to be a magazine reporter who came to interview. When he was asked by the staff about the magazine he represented, he was speechless. In the midst of panic, his eyes fell on a magazine next to him. "Awesome, how? Her name is William Thacker. I think actually she might be expecting me." "Oh, okay. Take a seat and I'll go check." In the process of waiting, the handsome man was in a hurry with the flowers in Nick's hand. He was curious about who the flowers were for. In order to avoid trouble for Ella, he claimed that he would go to a nearby hospital later, and the flowers were for the hospital's grandmother. However, we all know that once you lie, you need to use countless lies to make up for the lie. It was Nick's turn to interview. Under the guidance of the staff, he stepped into Ella's bedroom and finally saw Ella, who was dreaming of him. He gave her the flower in his hand. However, there was not much private space between the two of them, because Ella's manager was always on guard. In order not to expose their relationship, Nick had to ask Ella a formal question. There was nothing unusual in the communication between the two. The manager finally chose to leave. Nick seized the opportunity to ask Ella if she had time in the evening. But what surprised him was that Ella asked him to come this time just to apologize to him. "I apologize for kissing the thing. I seriously don't know what came over me, and I just wanted to make sure that you were fine with that." Nick's passion seemed to be extinguished by a pot of cold water, and he just woke up at this moment. He actually fantasized about falling in love with a big star. When he saw Nick's disappointed expression, Ella was about to explain. "Time's up, I'm afraid. Did you get what you wanted?" "Nearly." In this way, the two of them said goodbye. But the handsome man at the door found Dunning. "Did you take your grandmother's flowers?" Yeah, yeah." Just when Nick was about to turn around and leave, the staff found him again and asked him to interview all the actors. Although Nick felt helpless, he had no choice but to accept this task. After a series of interviews, Nick walked out exhausted. But the staff found him again. "Have you had a minute?" "No." His mouth was smaller than his mouth, but his actions were very honest. This time, the staff didn't look for trouble, but brought him to Ella's room. Nick also came in an instant. "Hi. Yeah, so the thing I was doing tonight, I'm not doing anymore." I told him I had to spend the evening with Britain's premier equestrian journalist. He had already made an appointment with this big star. But Nick forgot to celebrate his sister's birthday today. Fortunately, Ella is kind-hearted and took the initiative to celebrate her birthday with Nick. In this way, Nick met his parents indirectly with Ella. But as soon as he stepped into the house, Nick's brother deliberately harassed Ella. Ella, what do you do?" "I'm an actress." "Oh, splendid. What do you do?" "I'm acting in the stock market." "I've always imagined it's a pretty tough job, though, acting. I mean, the wages are a scandal, aren't they?" "They can be." "What do you get paid?" $15 million. Nick was speechless for a moment, because he couldn't believe his brother, whom he had always looked down upon, actually brought a big star home. Ella had already seen through this kind of scene, so she didn't take it to heart. It's just that in the process of getting along with Nick's family, she felt an unprecedented sense of warmth. At the table, the family talked about Nick's marriage that broke down due to unemployment. The atmosphere around was also awkward for a moment. Looking at Nick's uncomfortable look, Ella took the initiative to share her experience. She said that her acting career was not ordinary. Before she was 19, her life was quite difficult. She couldn't even afford to eat once. In order to change her fate completely, she bravely underwent 2 surgeries. After the surgery, her career finally reached its peak. But time is the enemy of every woman. She can only play some sad middle-aged women now. Ella also revealed that she had had a few uni-deal relationships. One of her boyfriends even forced her. Hearing this, everyone on the scene was in silence. They didn't expect that there was such a sad past. After the dinner, Nick took Ella for a walk in her childhood home. Memories seemed to have brought her to her childhood. "What's today's news?" "What did you say?" "Nothing." "Yes, you did." "Right. So here we go again." "Oh, well, what's today's news?" Nick is undoubtedly a standard softie. This made Ella look down on him. So she asked Nick to stand aside. "I don't think that's a good idea. Really, it's quite tricky." Anna, don't. It's hard, isn't it?" "No, it's not hard. It's easy." She was deeply frustrated. She finally triggered her inner potential and successfully turned it in. Under the blurry night, their love quickly warmed up. Ella kissed Nick again. If the first kiss was an impulse, then this time was undoubtedly a deep flow of feelings. The two of them fell in love completely. They watched a movie together, enjoyed a romantic dinner together, and walked together on the streets of London at night. The companionship during this time made Ella let go of the heavy burden of being a star and return to her true self. However, at a certain dinner, Nick suddenly heard Linge talking about Ella. Some even brazenly boasted that they had something to do with Ella. Nick couldn't bear it. And, I just think, the person you're talking about is a real person, and I think she probably deserves a little bit more consideration rather than having jokes like you drooling over her. Her graceful words made everyone laugh out loud. Ella immediately noticed the situation and was ready to leave with Nick. But unexpectedly, she suddenly turned around and came back. "Hi." Oh my God. Her appearance made those who were discussing immediately shocked. After that, Nick took Ella back to the hotel downstairs. "Do you want to come up?" "Well, there seem to be lots of reasons why I shouldn't, so there are lots of reasons. Do you want to come up?" "Give me 5 minutes." After confirming that it was a strawberry smell in her mouth, Nick quickly went upstairs. But when she knocked on the door, a dramatic scene happened. A man walked out of the room. Nick's heart was as painful as if he had been stabbed. But in order not to make it difficult for Ella, Nick quickly lied that he was a guest room attendant. Unexpectedly, the man ordered him to take away the garbage in the room. Then he hugged Ella as if he were a stranger. Nick's heart was as painful as a knife. In the end, he left that heartbreaking place. He wandered on the street as if he had lost his soul. His back looked so lonely, which made people pity him. And after that night, Nick sealed his whole heart and licked his wound alone. His family was very worried about him and began to look for a new partner for him. But Nick knew that he couldn't put his feelings into his new love at the moment. At the same time, the rumors about Ella were spreading in the room. His love with that man was also revealed by the media. But Nick just smiled calmly because he was determined to start a new life. But at this critical moment, Ella appeared in front of Nick again. She told Nick that the media not only exposed her love, but also dug out her sex photos in the early years. Now a lot of reporters are after her. She had nowhere to run, so she could only come to Nick's shelter. Seeing Ella's tearful look, Nick felt sorry for her and decided to provide her with a shelter. When Ella's emotions gradually calmed down, she apologized to Nick and explained that she and her ex-boyfriend no longer had feelings for each other. She was going to break up at the right time, but her ex-boyfriend happened to find her that night, which hurt Nick. Now she and her ex-boyfriend have broken up completely. After knowing all this, Nick felt a little relieved. But unfortunately, their conversation was accidentally heard by Nick's roommate. In the following days, Nick took the initiative to help Ella with the lines. The two of them sat on the sofa together and enjoyed the time of reading. In the process, they gradually moved closer to each other. Their feelings for each other deepened in the first scene. In the end, they spent an unforgettable night together. But the beautiful moment is always like a flash in the pan. In the early morning, when Nick opened the door, a group of reporters rushed in like a tidal wave. Nick was stunned by the scene in front of him. Ella happened to walk over. Nick wanted to remind her, but it was too late. Nick didn't care much about this, but Ella was in a panic. After calling her assistant in a hurry, Ella was surprised to find out that Nick's roommate had leaked her whereabouts. In a state of emotional out of control, Ella said a lot of bad words, but Nick didn't take it to heart. He just thought her reaction was a bit too intense. He suggested that she stop laughing, but Nick couldn't fully understand that the two of them were in a completely different environment. Ella couldn't get rid of it like she did, because every word and action of hers would be publicized. Any scandal could be deeply excavated by reporters and publicized. Therefore, she couldn't easily let go and, always be glad that you came to stay. But, you're probably right. Yeah, you better go. Time flies. Years go by. A year goes by so fast. At this moment, Nick has forgotten all his troubles and started a new life. But until this day, his brother told Nick that Ella was currently filming in Mount Noden. Nick couldn't believe it, but his brother could tell that he still missed Ella. So he told him not to miss this opportunity. But Nick was in a dilemma. He didn't want to ruin Ella's career, and he didn't want to experience the pain and suffering again. However, the next second, "Hi. Hello. How have you been?" "Fine. Fine. When they change the laws, Spike and I will marry immediately." "Well, yesterday was our last day of filming, so I have to go away today. But I wondered if I didn't. Whether you might let me see you a little. Or a lot, maybe. See if you could like me again." Hearing Ella's sincere words, Nick had a strong feeling in his heart. But after a brief hesitation, he eventually rejected Ella's confession. He was afraid of repeating the same mistake. His heart was already broken, and he couldn't bear any minor injury anymore. At that moment, Ella realized that she had brought Nick so much pain. That's why she could understand Nick's decision. But she still had some regrets, because she really wanted to spend the future with Nick. "I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love me." Ella's eyes were teary. Although Nick was unbearable, she still made a promise. Ella was a little disappointed, but she had no choice but to turn around and leave. After Ella left, Nick was confused. In order to find a way out, he gathered the whole family. Everyone had said everything they could. Everyone was looking forward to Nick's statement. Then, he quickly drove to Ella's press conference. When he arrived at the scene, the press conference was coming to an end. Nick walked through the crowd to the front. At this moment, Ella raised her head. Nick took the opportunity to ask her a question. "Ella, how long are you intending to stay here in Britain?" "Indefinitely."